So I started going down this path and I realized that all of these hormonal issues that we're having stem back to something that a pharmaceutical drug isn't going to fix. But that's what we do. We just, you present with these symptoms and they're like, okay, this is the drug that you should be on. When really I had to fix my diet. I had to figure out, I was on a bunch of different supplements to help support my different hormones that were being wrong. And it's a lot of work.
All right, well, it's Carla Rand. We're here on the Carla Rand Show, and I have Amanda Wilcox with me. And Amanda, the reason I found you was because of an amazing social media post that you did. And I started reading it, and I was like, this girl. So I reached out to you, and then we had a long conversation, like a lot longer than I think either of us thought we were going to have. And I was like, I could talk to this girl all day. So Amanda is a wife, a mom, and a registered nurse, and she has a lot of, I don't know if you want to call it inside information, but she has a lot of information experience in the health and wellness industry field. So, Amanda, welcome to the Carla Rand Show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. This is so exciting.
Yeah, I'm pumped to talk to you. So let's get right into it. Tell us, why did you get into the medical field? Why did you become a nurse? What was your motivation? How did that happen?
So it's kind of interesting how I got into the medical field because I didn't grow up like, I want to be a nurse when I grow up, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to like do something in the medical field. I actually wanted nothing to do with the medical field because my mom was a nurse and I watched her for my whole life be a nurse. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in that. So I was a psychology major when I went to college and changed my major 3 times in my first year. And then I realized like, I'm gonna have all these student loans and I'm not gonna like maybe get a job that I can actually like support myself with and pay my student loans. So after my first year in college, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go home. I'm going to live with my mom. I'm going to go to community college. I'm going to get a nursing degree because I know I can do it. And then I know that I'll have a job that I can actually support myself with after 2 years when I get out. So it was kind of accidental that I fell into nursing, but I knew what I was getting into because my whole family is in the medical field. So it was not your traditional thing. I was in school with all these people that are like, I've wanted to be a nurse for my whole life. And then they like went to clinical and they were like, I have to touch somebody's poop. And I'm like, yeah, like, what did you think we were doing? Yeah. You have to touch humans and it can be kind of gross at times. So I knew what I was getting into. So it wasn't that terrible and that like, crazy for me when I came in because we lost like half my nursing class in the first year of nursing school because they were like, I did not realize what I was getting into. So I sort of fell into it by accident, but luckily it served me well and I did well with it and I didn't absolutely hate it. So that was interesting, but I kind of just fell into it.
Cool. So what have you learned as a nurse? Like what did you learn, I guess, in school, but then how did that transition to like your experience?
Yeah. So this is going to be a long-winded answer.
Yeah, that's fine. Go for it.
In school, we learned, and I didn't question any of it while I was in school because I had no reason to. The internet was relatively new. Like you still had to have a .edu address to have a Facebook account when I was in nursing school. And so I had no reason to think that what I was being taught was wrong or was partial truths and full lies. I just didn't know. I had nothing to base it on. I grew up in a family where like you have one lick of a cough, you're getting, amoxicillin thrown at you and, ibuprofen all the time. I literally grew up with like 800 milligram ibuprofen tablets in my house, like, cause just go for just take the one and be done with it. So I learned in nursing school a basic premise of how the human body works, but mostly retrospecting back, I learned how to administer medications, side effect of medications, what medications don't go together, when you give certain medications, like it was all pharmaceutical based. And it was all, it's called med math. So it's like how to titrate IV drips and how to make sure that, you don't kill someone when you run a magnesium run into them because it can't go too fast. Like it was just all of these things that was so based around medicine and not based around being active, eating healthy, not eating, like looking at chemicals instead of calories, like all of these things. And it was probably, I would say about 7-ish years ago, 7, 8 years ago. I was working in home care and nobody wanted to talk to me about food. Like nobody gave a crap what food they should have. I would go to these houses, and a lot of my job was to, transition them out of the hospital and into their home environment. So I would be going over their medications with them, maybe setting up their pill boxes, making sure that they had an idea of what they were doing at home so that they would not go back in the hospital. And I had all these patients who were diabetic because so much of the population has at least borderline diabetes, and nobody cared about their food. They just were like, I'll just take more insulin. And I'm like, but that's not how this works. That's not how this works. So it was through that process that I started learning, like, okay, let's take a step back from medication. And I will say there's a time and a place for medication. We chatted about this on the phone before, but there's an issue. If there's an issue that you need a medication for, obviously, like you need to take a medication if you have an infection that's going to kill you. Like obviously you need an antibiotic. Obviously there's a time and a place, but in a preventative care type setting, and I don't know, I'm assuming that it's global, but especially in America, we're just like pounding people with pharmaceutical drugs and not even looking at, their vitamins that they're taking in. Maybe they're not absorbing vitamins. Maybe their diet is completely off. Maybe they're not eating the proper foods for like what's going on with their body. And I started really, really looking into that. And that's when I started realizing so much of what I learned doesn't apply. Like it's just take meds. Here's the meds, take them. And that was a huge eye opener for me. And it, threw me down this rabbit hole of learning more and more and more about the lies that I was taught, and how to overcome them, and what real health looks like, and why we don't have optimal health, because there's all of these stumbling blocks in the way, and you have to learn how to get through all these stumbling blocks. But all the teaching tells you that that's incorrect. Like it doesn't matter that there's fluoride in your water. Just you feel depressed, here, take this Zoloft. I'm like, but wait, hold on, wait a second, let's go back to the root source here. So that was a huge thing about how I started waking up to learning things. And then what I've also learned, and this isn't true of everyone, but I think as a general population of people are lazy and they don't want to learn how to better help themselves. It's easier to just say, oh, I'll just twist up my insulin coverage instead of not eating chips, not eating candy, not having cookies in their house, and all of these different things. Like it's difficult to eat healthy and be a healthy person. It takes effort, and it takes, today I went to the gym and I'm like, I'm going to die. Like I haven't been to the gym in 3 weeks because we've been traveling, and it's hard, especially if you're, super overweight to begin with. So those were some of the things that I broadly learned. I don't know if there's any specific topics that you wanted me to talk about.
That's so good. No, that's good, because I just want, like, because there's a lot of people like you, Amanda. Like you're not the only one. You're not the only nurse. You're not the only one in the medical field that sort of sees that something's a little bit off. Because yes, there's a time and a place for medication, and some people absolutely need medication. They'll die without it, no matter what they're eating and how much exercise they're doing. They're going to die without their medication. So they need medication, and I mean, that's great. But there's also so many ailments that happen, so many diseases that happen because we're not eating properly, we're not exercising. And like you said, I think what we're creating here is we're actually creating a very lazy group of people, the medical field, because it's like, nobody really talks about exercising, eating well, like even through COVID, right? Like how many people actually said, you know what, you guys need to be taking more vitamin D. You need to be doing, I mean, there was a few people talking about that, but you didn't really hear the media talking about that. You didn't really hear the governments talking about it. You didn't hear the mainstream narrative talking about all the things that you can do to boost your immune system. Instead, it's like, take the vaccine. Well, it's fine if you want to take the vaccine, I guess. I mean, everybody has a different opinion about that, but don't just take the vaccine. Like, make sure you're doing everything else, because maybe
Right.
what if you don't get COVID, but you get a whole bunch of other things? Like, there's always going to be something. So I just love that you said that. And I feel also like a huge discrepancy. And I know a lot of doctors as well who are excellent at saying, yeah, are you taking your vitamins? Are you taking a multivitamin? They're great, right? And then I know a lot of doctors that, like, the first thing they say is, oh, well, here, take this pill, right? Like, that's the first thing. They don't even ask you about your diet. They don't ask you anything. It's just,
Right.
here's this pill, right? So I'm glad that you're addressing this.
Yeah, and there's another thing too. So I see what's called a nutritional response testing doctor, and I have conversations with people all day long about NRT because that was what was the switch that flipped for me. Um, it's super unconventional. It's literally all my coworkers when I started going to this doctor were like, "Oh yeah, you're weird like arm witch doctor," because it's muscle testing. So it tests your whole system, and what is so cool about it is the muscle testing, your body will tell you what is wrong, and your body will tell you what's the priority and where do you start, and like what needs to be addressed first. So when I started going to this doctor, I had all of the issues that every person has, I feel like, on the face of the planet: tired, fatigued, back pain. And I was personally, I was dealing with some like anxiety type symptoms, which I was like, I don't understand why I'm having anxiety attacks. I've never had anxiety in my life. I don't know what's going on. So I go to this doctor and I find out which all of these things would have never been found through going to a regular practitioner. But I found that I had parasites. They were in my heart. That's why I was having anxiety type issues, because they were active in my heart. They were also in my adrenal glands. And still 2 years later, fixing my adrenal glands, which caused a cascade of events with my adrenal glands, my pituitary gland, my thyroid is off. So all of these different things. And I know for a fact, because my mother is having thyroid issues, if I had gone to a regular PCP doctor, they would have thrown me on Synthroid, given me an antidepressant, and called it a day. And I was like, I don't want to be on Synthroid for the rest of my life, because it's a lifelong drug, and I don't want to be on antidepressant medications. If you need them, that's perfectly fine. I personally did not want to be on them. So I started going down this path, and I realized that all of these hormonal issues that we're having stem back to something that a pharmaceutical drug isn't going to fix. But that's what we do. We just, you present with these symptoms and they're like, okay, this is the drug that you should be on. When really I had to fix my diet. I had to figure out, I was on a bunch of different supplements to help support my different hormones that were being wrong. And it's a lot of work. And I think people don't want to take the time and effort. Like, there was a period of time when I was getting my adrenal glands fixed and getting my parasites taken care of. I was on like 17 supplements, and it was all day long. I was on tinctures and pills and all these things, and writing down every last thing I ate and every last time I pooped and all of these things, and taking care of everything. And it worked. It got rid of everything. And I no longer have those initial issues, but now it's just as we work through, I'm 35 years old. So, I've got years of different things to fix through. But nutritional response testing, I think, I give everybody, I'm like, you need to go see an NRT. Like, they're gonna help you. They're gonna fix you. And so that's always like my first line of defense for people. And it's hard to do because it's so different. It's so different from anything that anybody has ever seen before. There's no needles, there's no testing, there's no blood work, there's no nothing. It's just your body and the supplements and the different toxins in the system, in the ecosystem that they test you against. But that is like true health. So that's where I always lead people to. Now that I know what I know, I'm like, listen, you need to like clean up your diet, get rid of all the toxic crap that's in your house, go see a nutrition response testing doctor, especially if you're someone who is like, I talk to a lot of people every day who are the people that have issues that are never fixed by their doctors. They're going for this test, that test, a biopsy, an MRI, of trying this med, trying that med, getting their blood work done. And they're like, I still am like, there are no answers. And there are answers and they're found in nature. And unless you're like have a trauma and your leg got cut off, or you're, have a stroke or a heart attack or something like traumatic right now that we have to take care of. A lot of these things can be looked at and fixed and reversed and, taken care of through nature and through diet and through exercise and through getting rid of toxic crap in your house. And I think that a lot of people don't even know that that exists. Every single person I talk to, they're like, what is that? I've never heard of it. And I'm like, oh, let me tell you, I'm so excited. We're going to learn.
That's so good. And I think, like you said, there's a couple of things here. So one of them is a lot of people say, well, obviously if you eat junk, you're going to feel bad. Okay. So some people get that, but they don't always understand the other toxins in their home, the cleaning things, the scentsy, or I don't say scentsy because that's like a brand, but like the scented candles, perfumes, all of that. Right. And they just, maybe they're having some sort of reaction they don't even understand. So yes, it's your food. It's all the other things that touch your skin, that you inhale, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Even hair products and stuff. Like there's a lot of things that we need to be really watching. Everything.
It's like everything you ever touch. And what I didn't realize when I started going to see this nutrition response testing doctor, he was like, you got to get rid of all the junk in your home. And I'm like, I eat really clean. I'm like, you don't understand. I eat really clean. He's like, yeah, but you use Tide and you have these like what are they, like Airwick? They're the ones that spray automatically and they scare you when you walk by. Your house smells good. So all of these things are causing respiratory issues. And what's worse is hormonal issues. They're all endocrine disruptors. They all jack up your endocrine system. And when we like cleaned it up and I learned all of these different things, my daughter stopped being sick all the time. I am still like working through my hormone issues, but they're so much better. I'm not sick all the time. And people don't realize, they don't make that connection. They're like, well, I eat healthy and I work out, but there's all of this other stuff that nobody realizes. And I was a nurse for 10 years before I was like, oh, wait a second. Maybe we should look into this more. So
yeah, and your food is so important. But again, what you said before was it's not always what we eat; it's what we digest and absorb. So if you're not digesting and absorbing things right, then you need to get to the root of it. And I think a lot of people, they just punch it. Oh, we'll take all these supplements. Well, that's okay for a while, but you need to find out, why is your gut not working properly? Why are you not absorbing it? And start working to heal that gut. So there's a lot that can be done that really gets to the root of it. And most medications, if you're taking a medication, or even if you're taking a supplement, honestly, for the most part, you really should only be taking that for a short period of time. It should never be a long-term, like I'm taking this for the rest of my life strategy, unless you have something extreme, like very high blood pressure and you just can't seem to get it down any other way, maybe asthma. But a lot of stuff, even like those types of things, can often be reversed or at least helped with proper diet. And just like, fixing your gut, getting rid of the toxins, like all the things that you talked about. So I wish more people would talk about this. And I sure wish that more doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals would talk more about this. But it seems like, oh, that's just, they're there. Like that's that's fine. But like, that's not really the problem here. I'm a doctor and I prescribe meds, right? It's like, oh, that's amazing, right? But yeah, okay. So what else do you want to share with us, Amanda, that's just like that you're seeing from your experience?
The big theme that I'm seeing lately, especially, and like I really don't want to talk about COVID at all because I'm so over it and done with it. But in the season that we're in, people are so afraid, and like everything is energy, and it makes me sound like super woo woo, but everything is energy. And if you are scared to death of catching something, or even people who are like, listen, this vaccine isn't for me, and I kind of think that COVID is like whatever, but people are afraid of like the government coming to their door and like asking for their paperwork and like all of these things, and it's creating a scared mindset and all this fear. Your immune system is going to back down because you're afraid. So your fear of everything is impacting your health and causing you to be afraid. And or causing you to be less well because you're afraid. And the biggest thing that I've seen, like I have done, I have not, I've lived my life the way I always have through this whole entire thing, except for where like I wasn't allowed to. I'm like, okay, I need to do that. Like I couldn't go out to restaurants for like 6 months because they were closed. But
Mhm.
other than that, I've traveled. I don't wear a mask. I wash my hands like a normal human. I'm not disinfecting everything. And I also have never been afraid. I'm like, listen, I've worked in the healthcare industry for 20 years. I've never gotten the flu. I got the flu shot like twice, I think, because once I was like bullied into it, and the other time I like was convinced that I had to because I had a brand new baby, and which now I know is dumb. But um, I never was afraid. I'm like, I worked through H1N1 when that I was a brand new nurse when that happened. Um, I never caught anything. I've never even had the chicken pox, and I'm like, I'm gonna be fine. So I was never fearful. And I knew that if I supported my immune system and I took care of my body and I wasn't, having all of these things in my system, that my body would know what to do and my body would take care of it. I haven't been sick. I have not had any issues. I've never had it. I've never been tested, but I also have never been sick. So I'm assuming that I've never had it. My whole family is the same way. And I think the biggest thing that people need to realize right now is to just stop being afraid. Like if you turned your TV off and you just lived your life, I had a conversation with my friend about this last week. We were like, what would life look like if we just turned off the TV and we turned off our social media and this was all we had to base our life on, is what was in front of us? Like, how much different would your life be? You would probably be so much happier if you were just living your life, like eating your fruits and vegetables, getting your exercise, taking your supplements if you take them, and just knowing that like, hi, our species has survived this long. We have an immune system. It's gonna be fine. We'll be okay. There are the rare people who are, super immunocompromised or already have health issues that this can impact. But as a general rule for all the things, like, don't be afraid. Just take care of your body and your body will take care of you back.
Mhm.
And I think that that's a piece that a lot of people are missing, is people don't take care of their body and then it doesn't take care of them back. And then they're like, now it's an emergency. What do we do? Throw drugs at it. And I'm like, no, well, maybe for like the interim, so you don't like have a stroke or a heart attack or whatever. But that like, then we need to look at being actually healthy. And that's full around like what you eat, how you move, what's in your environment, what you put into your brain, all of those things, who you surround yourself with. Like that's true total health, is all of those things. So I'm never surprised when people are super fearful and don't know, when all they're doing is watching mainstream media and they're being bombarded by billboards all over while they're driving to be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. Like, of course you're going to be afraid if that's what you're looking at all day long and you have no other sounding board and everybody's talking about how they're so afraid and all these things. It's like, just take care of yourself and your body will take care of you back, and you'll be good to go.
It's so true. And I think that that's a big thing, is like your mental health is related to your physical health, which is related to your emotional health, which is related to your spiritual health. Like it's all related. Like we are very, we're all encompassing human beings.
Big web.
It's a big web. And so I think sometimes when you just isolate one part, then there's a problem. So if, like you said, if you're always fearful or if you're always feeling anxious about something, like find out why. And also, not only do you have to control your physical health, right, with exercise, good nutrition, but you have to control your mental health. You have to control your mental and emotional health. And you do that by, turning off the TV. Like on my social media, because I'm on there a lot, and I think you are too, Amanda, with your, So I control it all. Like there's a ton of people I just unfollow, like on Instagram, on Facebook, like any negativity and stuff, I just get it out of there. Because even if they may be a friend of mine, but I'm just like, you know what, if you want to call me, you want to text me, fine, but like these things that you're posting are just getting me fired up. They're making me either afraid or angry, and I just don't want to feel that way. If I didn't have to be on social media, maybe I wouldn't worry too much. I just go on there the odd time and deal with it. But when I'm on there as much as I am, I need to have it a happy place. So I think that a lot of us have to find out what is causing us to be fearful. If every time you turn on the TV you feel fearful, then turn it off. Same thing with your social media. Clean it up. Get everything so that you can surround yourself with as much positive and people too, Amanda, who you talk to, who you visit with, who you share with.
Yep.
That's important too. So yeah, making it a happy place for your body, your mind, your physical emotions, everything. I think that's where people are missing.
I think too with the for me personally, because with what I do for work, a lot of what I'm doing online is researching what's going on in the world, what's our next step. Like I'm always trying to be like one step ahead of what's happening so that I can be prepared and also teach people like, okay, like this is the next step, this is what we need to be doing. So I personally, I research a lot of kind of dark things, and I have to, because I that's what I do for my living apparently now, is I'm just like the researcher of all the things and I spew it all out on the internet. But if you're a type of person that has to learn those things, I need to know what's going on with the government, what's happening with, the health departments, all these variants. Like I have to like look into all of this stuff and see like where the deception is and all of these things, and it's really heavy. And so what I do when I'm in, like, the last couple of weeks, I was in a season of like extreme research, and I was content overload, just like saving things from TikTok because I don't trust any, like I have so many things saved on my phone because I don't trust that they're going to be there when I go back to reference them. So I save them all on my phone, and I like input all of this content into my head for like a couple of weeks, and then it's too much, and I can feel that, and I'm like, okay, turn it off. So I have barely been on my phone for the last like 5 days because I'm like, nope, I take a break, pull it all down, get ready, rejuvenate. I like hung out with my mom. I went to the beach, we went to the mountains, and I just like took it down a level so that now I'm ready again to go into another season of researching to see what's going on. So if, any of your listeners have like, that's what you do, is you're like, I can't turn it off because I have to, like, I'm a messenger. I have to tell people what's going on. That's how I feel about myself. You just need to know where your threshold is and turn it off. And even if you're just doing it for yourself, so that you're informed and you understand like where the world is going and what we're doing, just understand where that threshold is for you so that you can turn it off and go recharge and not let it overtake your life. And that was one of the biggest things for me that I realized how to do about 2 years ago. I knew like, okay, I have a threshold of information that I can hold in my brain, and then I need to not look at anything for a long time, turn all the social media, all the things off, and then I'll be ready to go and learn more again.
Yeah, I think it's true. And I think sometimes even just having a day a week where you're just like, I'm off or whatever, there's a lot that you can do. But I think don't just, yeah, I think everything in life, don't just do what everybody else does. Like always evaluate, always think, always check. And how is it impacting me? What happens when I don't do this? Do I feel better? Blah, 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 right? So what else do we need to know, Amanda? What does the average person need to know that maybe we haven't addressed yet about the healthcare, the medical system? How can we be very enlightened? Because you're doing all this research, and so it kind of saves us the legwork because we already are busy enough. I actually started going down that rabbit hole a bit, and I just got too busy, Amanda. And I was just like, oh, I can't keep up with this. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I understand how taxing it can be. So tell us a little bit. What else do we need to know? What does the average North American need to know right now about this kind of stuff?
What I would say, the biggest things for me is I would, number one, trust your gut, especially if you are having like a health type of issue and you're in the medical system and you're wound up in that system with doctors and tests and hospitals and all the different clinics and everything. Always trust your gut and know that you can have a advocate for you that isn't yourself, that can come in and dissect this information for you. And that's what nurses are supposed to be. We're supposed to be advocates for people. And it's difficult now in this, and it's kind of been for the last several years of my nursing career, where they're too taxed and there's too much work to do to advocate for our patients the way that we would like to. So that was a big reason why I left traditional nursing, was because I was like, I can't do my job the way I need to do it to help you. So it's very important. And I don't think that everyone needs to be super well versed in medical terminology and know all of the things. But I do think that it's important that if you don't understand what your doctor or your practitioner or even your nurse is telling you, keep asking questions. And they might get annoyed with you because they are pressed for time and they are, trying to take care of 8 other patients in addition to you, and they're crazy busy. But you have the right to have that information, and you have the right to be informed about your medical care. So even if you like take notes, write things down when you don't understand what's going on, and then refer back to it, and don't stop until you get an answer that you actually understand. That was something that it was mind blowing to me when, especially the elderly population, they come into a hospital and they don't really have anyone with them, or the people that are with them don't really understand what's going on and they don't ask any questions. And I would always tell them what I'm doing. And even in like extreme type of situations where it's like a trauma or something happening and like nobody asks any questions. And I was like, I always ask questions. And I just assumed that it was because I knew about medicine. So I was like, okay, I know this much. So I'm going to ask questions because I want to understand it better. But it wasn't the case, because there was a ton of medical professionals that I knew that didn't ask questions, and a lot of things that we ended up unearthing about different pieces of the medical system. We were like, why did I never think to ask about that? Like, why did I never think to ask that? So people who are not in medicine, you really don't think to ask about that, because there's no trigger for you to be like, wait, this is odd. So always ask questions, and know that you can have an advocate for you, and you don't have to make a decision. I mean, unless you're literally in a life or death situation, I will say that. But typically, you don't have to make a decision right now. You can marinate on it. You can come home and do a little research for yourself. You can get second, third, fourth opinions from people. Like, you are not married to your physician. You don't have to take what that one physician says as law and as everything that's going on. You can take a minute, wait until you fill that prescription, go do some research for yourself, get another opinion. I always tell people, if you don't like what your doctor says to you, go get a different doctor and see if the answer is different. If it's something that truly you're like, I don't feel right about this, I don't know. You have that right to have autonomy and knowing what's going on with your body, and true informed consent, which, tell you what, it doesn't happen very often. There is not a lot of true informed consent. Like, you should be able to look at the inserts of everything that you're putting into your body and all of these different things. So having an advocate and being an advocate for yourself or for your elderly family that can't take care of themselves, and that, it's just too much for them when they're older. That would be the number one thing that I think is the most important, especially right now, is true informed consent and advocacy. And don't stop until you have an answer that you understand. Because if you don't understand it, what's the point of getting an answer if they tell you all of this jargon that's pretty much a different language to you? Like, these doctors, they just are like, blah, 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 and they speak up here because they don't, that's what nurses are for. We're like the translator of the, like, it comes in and I understand it all, and then I put it out my mouth, and it, not to sound rude, but I try to dumb everything down as dumb as I can get it, so that it's very understandable and there's not a shadow of a doubt that you don't understand what I'm saying. So that understanding is key, because a lot of people don't understand what's happening to them, and then they get into a situation where it's so far snowballed and escalated, and they're like, how did I get here? How did this happen? And it's because back here you weren't really sure what was going on, so you just went with it. And then now you're in this situation where you're like, this is out of control. I don't even know what's going on with my own body or my family or whoever it is. And it all just starts with getting answers to your questions that you can actually understand.
That's so good. I was talking to a couple of people, well, quite a few people that I talk to that want to work with me, because I'm a nutritionist and a fitness coach. They often are in a place where yeah, they're like, well, I say, well, tell me about what you meant. Well, I'm on antidepressants. I'm on, anti-anxiety medications, and I'm on this other thing for my adrenal fatigue, and I'm taking this, and I'm pre-diabetic, and all of this stuff. So when I start hearing that, I'm like, okay, they probably have some serious nutrition deficiencies. They're probably having a lot of processed stuff. And as we dial it down, that's usually the case. So when they start working with me, oftentimes, like, my goal is to try to get them off their medications, like, not immediately. And obviously I work with their doctor. I'm not like, trying to sneak
Right.
over here. Cause I mean, and I always say, like, listen to your doctor first, but here's what I recommend. And so a lot of them end up off their medications, and sometimes in a very short period of time, because you clean up your diet, especially when you're absorbing all those nutrients, you maybe take a
Yeah.
few supplements for a time. All of a sudden, you're like, I feel so good. And so a lot of
Right.
people are like, oh my goodness, I have so much energy. I'm sleeping so much better. I don't need these medications anymore. And it's like, well, yeah, like that's kind of, and it's just really sad because a lot of these people, Amanda, they've been like one lady I talked to, she's on antidepressants for I think 10 years, or anti-anxiety medication or something, and never like talked about her diet. Right? It was just like, here's this medication. And I'm like, oh, like, can we just, sure, start with the medication, but like, let's get the diet cleaned up too. Let's do as much as we can. And
Right.
yeah, and I just hear so many stories like that. So when I talked to you, it was just so refreshing because I was just like, it's like you have an itch, and you just want it scratched. Like everything you say, I'm like, yes, yes, like I agree, I agree, I
Yes.
agree. So yes, it's so good to hear. So how can we have optimal health then? And by the way, when you talked about having somebody advocate for you, I always thought that every single person, and like you said, kind of a nurse is sort of that job. Every single person should have an advocate. So you know how you have like a family doctor? You should have like a family advocate. So somebody that talks to your fitness coach, your nutritionist, that talks to your doctor, that talks to the nurse that's taking care of you, your chiropractor, physiotherapist, all of the things. Somebody who can advocate and understands, and then link it all together and put all of the pieces of the puzzle together so that you can get the absolute best care. So yeah, what else can you say about how do we have optimal care then?
Optimal health. Oh, there's so many things that you can do. But I think the biggest thing is you have to start by listening to your body. So like I actually just got finished reading this book, the blood type diet book, Eat for Your Blood Type, and I was so intrigued by it because I was like, everybody says that this particular food, whatever it is like super perfect for everybody. And I'm like, yeah, except for not me. Apparently, I shouldn't eat Brussels sprouts. And I'm sad about that because I love them. So listening to your body and knowing like what is good for you. My husband, for example, he literally functions on 4 to 5 hours of sleep every night, and he is fine. Like that's all he needs. And I'm like, hi, don't wake me up past 9. Like I need a lot of sleep in my life. And listening to what you do best with for exercise. There's certain people who respond really, really well to like yoga and Tai Chi and like those types of things. And there's other people like me who I'm like, I need to go throw around heavy weights and be aggressive about it. Like that's what makes me feel good. And knowing what is good for you when you eat and paying attention to labels and not just like this is natural, this is green, this is organic, like that's great, but actually looking at ingredients, because I didn't realize this until I'm kind of embarrassed to say. I didn't realize until like probably a year and a half ago that just because a food was organic, meats in particular, didn't mean that they were not fed grain and kept in a barn the whole time. I was like, it says organic, so it must be good. But I had to learn that it has to be grass fed, ideally grass finished too, because a lot of them, they feed them grass for their whole life. And then for the last like 4 months of their life, they fatten them up with grain before they slaughter these animals. And I was like, I had no idea. So optimal health is you're working out, you're doing something not necessarily like I do CrossFit. I don't expect everybody to go to CrossFit and be like a wild animal in the gym like I do, but moving your body in some type of way, and really paying attention to what you're putting in your body and knowing what different ingredients are. There's like 100 million names for sugar, and it's all sugar, but people don't know that all these different, it doesn't say sugar and it doesn't say high fructose corn syrup. So they think that it's okay. And label reading is like it should be taught in schools. I don't know why it isn't like
Mhm.
teaching, and not just like counting your macros and knowing that something's high carb or low carb or high protein or the fat content, but actually looking at like what is in it. Like, does it have dyes in it? Does it have ingredients that are hidden in these things? And that we go back again to people being lazy. It takes a lot of time. Like, it takes forever to go through the grocery store. If every time you pick something up, you're like, well, I gotta read the ingredients on this. Like, it takes a long time to figure it out.
I always tell people though, it takes a long time initially, but then once you start to get it, then it's fast. Yeah, then you know.
Then you know.
Yeah.
So it's the learning process that is what takes forever. And that's where people get frustrated. And the other thing too is remembering that it's all a journey. So it's all this like process. It's not linear. You're not going from point A to point B and you're just going to go, whoop, here we go. We're here. You're up and down. You're up and down. You're like, sometimes I go away for the weekend and I eat nachos and tacos and drink too much beer. Like it's life. It happens. But then I know, like, once you have that basis and that foundation of information, you can always go back to it and you know where to start. So don't get overwhelmed with thinking that it has to be perfect all the time, and know that there's always information that you're going to be learning. You're never going to know it all. You're never going to be just like this person that knows everything about everything. It's a constant learning curve, and having grace with yourself and just knowing like, okay, today I'm going to start looking at ingredients, and I'm going to, like, what I did was I would go through the store, and the main way to do it is like, don't buy things that are in boxes. That helps, because like fruits and vegetables don't typically come in containers. So that will tell you what's in them. But what I did in the beginning, when I was first learning all of this, when I would buy something that was in a box or had a package, I would look at it and I would make note if I didn't recognize the name of something in the ingredient list. I'm like, okay, what is this LMNOP word that it's like this long. I don't know what it is. So I started paying attention to those things. And Pinterest was actually where I started getting all of this information. Pinterest is such a wealth of knowledge. There's little infographics for everything. You could punch in like gluten-free meals and you get all this information. So that's where I started. And I learned about like carrageenan and how that's so terrible. And I was like, wait a second, that's in my coffee creamer. And then I learned about polysorbate 80. And I was like, wait a second, that's in the juice, the little squeezy Mio juice things that I give my daughter. Let's stay away from that. So it was like these little steps, and then constantly learning and knowing that like our bodies are probably not absorbing what they need to be absorbing because, all the soil is garbage and it's, the world we live in. So looking at supplements and knowing like, okay, I should probably be like, I've been taking vitamin D for, I don't know, a year now, and I live in the South. I get plenty of sun, but my doctor was like, you should probably supplement with some vitamin D just in case. Vitamin D is very important right now. I'm like, okay, noted, got it. I'll be taking vitamin D. So just listening to little tidbits of things and knowing that your body is ultimately like, you're in control of what you do or do not put in it. So whether that's into your mouth, what you do with your body, what you put into your brain, who you hang out with, and optimal health is something that I feel like it's an ever moving goalpost, because some people might look at me and say like, you are in optimal health. And I'm like, I got a long way to go. I tried to run today and it was not pretty. So there's all of these things, and you just have to know that like, it's always only about a competition with yourself and how well that you can do based on the knowledge that you have gained up to this point in your life and moving forward, so that you just are always continually learning and continually making yourself a little bit better every single day, and just paying attention to what you have in your surroundings, whether that's your air care, your hair care, your supplements you're using, your shampoo, your vitamins, your whatever, your food, all of that stuff. Like, you just have a circle, pay attention about everything that's around you. And it does get easier. Like, the beginning is aggressive. And then you start, it's kind of like when you go on a diet and they're like, you need to measure all your food. And I'm like, okay. So I measured all my food. Now I can like eyeball a piece of meat and I pretty much know how many ounces it is because I've been doing it for so long. So you just get to learn things as you go along.
So good. So good, Amanda.
Thanks.
So any last words for us, Amanda, before we kind of wrap up here? And then I'm going to ask where people can go to find you. But anything that you've kind of missed that you're like, you know what, people should really know this? Or did we cover?
I hit everything. I think I was pretty long-winded.
Oh, that was good. That was good. Everything
I most of it.
I was like just cheering back here. I'm like, yeah, go Amanda, go Amanda. Preach it, girl. Preach it, girl. That's awesome. Okay, where do people go to find you, Amanda, if they want to just connect with you? I mean, your social media is pretty hot. You got lots of stuff going on there. And it won't take you long on your social media if you're checking Amanda Wilcox's social media out to find out exactly what she believes and where she's at. She doesn't beat around the bush.
Yeah.
It's very clear. So yeah,
it's very clear where I stand. I spend most of my time on Facebook. So I'm Amanda Wilcox on Facebook. I think the @ is it's hey.itswilcox.
Okay.
And then it's my handle on Instagram is also hey it's Wilcox. And I'm on Instagram, but I spend more time on Facebook. So I put content on Instagram, mostly stories. But really where I'm at is on Facebook. I'm over there all the time, stories, posts, all the things. And yeah, it'll be very evident if we jive or not when you look at my page. I don't hold back.
There's no holding back, which is great.
There's no like tiptoeing around anything. It's just here I am.
Yes. That's good. And so you get a lot of people that just love you so much, Amanda, but then you get people that are like, no, like, I don't like you at all.
You know what's interesting? I feel like the people that don't like me just quietly leave out the back door. And there just must be so many people that think the same way I do, because I've just found like all of these people that are like, yes, I agree with you. This, like a lot of nurses are actually in my inbox right now with like all different kinds of stories. I'm really connecting with a lot of nurses, which is really helpful. What I've found is the majority of healthcare professionals cannot be vocal because they will lose their job, which is unfortunately the world that we live in. So they quietly tell me privately in my inbox, like, I agree with you. Yes, this happened to me. But Facebook is pretty much where I hang out all of the days of my life. And I'm trying to be better about my inbox. It's a dumpster fire right now. So if anyone messages me, I will get to you. I promise. I didn't know there was a spam folder. Apparently there's a spam folder on Facebook. I didn't know it. There's like hundreds. I'm like, whoa, I didn't know this existed. Here, sorry.
Sorry, it's been a couple years and I finally get back to you.
Sorry, it's been a while. I didn't know that this little folder was back here in the little back end of your messenger. So I'm aware of that now. So now I check it frequently.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. I loved what you shared. And and honestly, like when we had that, there's so much more that Amanda could talk to us about. We could probably be here seriously 5 hours, and I'm not exaggerating at all. And we'd probably there'd be more that we could dig into. But I just appreciate what you shared, Amanda. And yeah, please go check out her stuff. And like she said, we'll find out right away whether or not you like her. So thank you, Amanda. Keep preaching it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. I absolutely love that you joined us. I love being able to record these, and I love our guests. It's been so much fun. So thank you. Please like it, share it, comment, do all of the things that you feel like you want to do if you enjoyed this podcast. I really, really appreciate that. And this podcast has been brought to you by my company, Power Fitness Online. So everything that we do locally with our workouts, with our group nutrition coaching, and with all of the other fun events and stuff that we run, we put all of that online. So now you can access everything, even if you're not locally, don't live in our area. So my coaches and I and all my staff, the whole team, we are putting so much work into these workouts. We're filming 5 fresh workouts every single week so that you never have to do the same workout twice. We're also doing group nutrition and personal nutrition coaching so that you get exactly what you need. And you know what the best part is? It's the community. The absolute best part is just knowing that you have the support, that you have the encouragement, that you have everything you need to succeed. So go to powerfitnessonline.com.